Well, hello, and thank you for having me. I just briefly looked over the type of registrants that we have today, and it appears we've got a very mixed audience with a lot of you in roles other than design. So I'm going to try to speak to everyone, and some of what I'll go over may be old hat to designers, but should clarify a few things for other folks. The goal, of course, being to increase sales while enforcing your brand's presence on all your catalog covers. From my experience, it seems that catalogs are one of the most challenging things to design. We're dealing with a lot of little bits of information that all have to go in one place, and they all have to function really well. We also have multiple product managers all vying for their product's attention. Some of us also don't have the opportunity to work with photos that are shot specifically for our covers. We often have to pick up existing shots and then figure out a way to make them cover-worthy. I'd also like to just mention for the record that the points that I'm going to review today are from my collective design experience dating all the way back to 1984. The fact that I've been around that long, though, does not make me an expert. In fact, that's a whole other soapbox altogether, but I'd like you all to never consider yourselves experts, largely because there's really no way to know everything. Technology keeps changing the way we design and sell so fast, it's impossible to keep up with all of it. But what we can do, and what I hope to do today, is to continue to share ideas and information using Twitter, Facebook, webinars like this one, blogs, what have you. That said, let's get started with first impressions. And the thing about first impressions, I want you to remember that either the front or the back cover can leave a first impression. So we can't neglect either one. Here are two really good examples of catalogs. One that's very effective, whether it lands face up or face down. The other one, not so much. I like the burpee catalog because both sides are really easy to read. Even the body text on the back works with my bifocals. And I don't have to read the tiny type. And look at this. They're even reminding me about the $5 off coupon on both the front and the back. They really want me as a consumer. The design on both sides is simple. It's not overly complicated. If I were a new designer or a new gardener, this would make gardening seem really easy for me because both covers are easy to read, and it just feels friendly. I don't feel like I have to be a master gardener in order to grow burpee seeds. Now let's contrast that with this catalog from Kitazawa. Now this is kind of it's a quaint little design with one color illustration on the cover, and it seems friendly and it's not very uptight, but look at this. The back cover only serves a single purpose, mailing. It's a total waste of usable space and a waste of money. Not that they need to completely fill the back cover. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying that. But they totally missed an opportunity to present one or two, maybe three additional vegetables that are hot sellers this year. The Kitazawa back cover, therefore, in my opinion, is a total misuse of space. Lost opportunities. This really could have worked a lot harder for them. They've even got a recipe section inside the catalog, and no other catalog in the gardening sector does that I could find. And that could have really been a selling feature for them for specific products on the back cover. They could have said something like, plant this Asian eggplant and use the recipe on page 32. This leads us to my next topic, what I call functional space. Now, I know a lot of people, and over the years we've all called it white space, but that's really a volatile term that I think we need to start thinking about not using. It can cause using the term white space causes huge feuds between designers and basically the rest of the world. So anyway, white space can actually be overused, as you saw on the back of the Kitazawa catalog. So let's discuss how we can increase the functionality of covers, and often it's just a teeny amount of space that's needed. Both of these examples really pack in the products on their back covers, but the Tiger Direct is much easier to comprehend, due in part to its use of what I call functional space. They've kept it clean as possible, while still providing information on 6 individual product SKUs. Now, the Heartland America It's only pitching 3 products on the back cover. But, oh my God, there's so much unnecessary information on this cover. I have to work really hard to figure out if I'm going to give them my money. When elements get crammed too tightly together, what happens is comprehension decreases and readability slows down. For instance, I spend way too much time trying to understand how I get 10% off free shipping. More space between those 2 bits of copy in that upper left corner would have really helped me figure out what's going on up there and make a decision. Tiger Direct is certainly not a glamorous or what you'd call a luxury brand, but it has a more functional back cover that allows me to compare and choose very quickly. Another way to increase sales is through thoroughly understanding what types of product images make your customers buy. Make sure you understand what it is about a product that will help customers make decisions. If you're selling kitchen knives or trips to Costa Rica, for instance, a shot of your building is not going to make that sale. Make absolutely sure that your images support the sale. That's your goal. If they don't, you've wasted valuable real estate that could have been used for something more appropriate and more sales-worthy. For instance, Vosges, and I'm going to totally mispronounce their name, Vosges Aux Chocolate is a very selective array of incredibly high-end chocolates, and they're all very expensive compared to the chocolates that you'd buy at a grocery store. Their brand look and tone is created to specifically sell exclusive ingredients, exclusive flavors, and an overall chocolate experience that you're not going to get with cheap drugstore chocolate. Their catalogs, therefore, are all on very high-quality paper stock, fashion-style photography. The copywriting is exceptional, and they don't mess around with Slim Jims or digest sizes. They're a great example of a luxury brand, but even Vosges can find it challenging to maintain their brand look while increasing sales. 3 years ago, they had a huge internal debate among their staff on the cover photography for their Valentine's Day catalog. Some in the company wanted to approach the cover from a purely high-end fashion perspective, while others were absolutely convinced they needed to continue showing product the way they had been in the packaging. To settle the debate, they printed the 2 covers you see here, and they conducted split testing on their mail list. The cover on the right was the high fashion concept using the crystal goblet to contain the chocolates, and the cover on the left shows the chocolates in the Valentine's box that they actually deliver in. And while both support the brand in a very luxurious kind of way, the folks wanting to bump up the fashion angle of the brand actually sold less. In fact, the Valentine's box on the cover sold 15% more chocolate. So, of course, now they stick with the box on all their Valentine's Day catalog covers. You'd think that showing the box on the covers would be boring, but their photo styling of the boxes still supports both fashion and luxury angle of their brand, and it generates higher sales. So it is possible. Another story, and I don't have a picture of it for you, but Larry and I were talking about it earlier. They had another situation where they could have run some split testing, or they could have split their mail list a little bit more, and that was the year that they did the cover with the bacon and chocolate combined. They found out the hard way that a significant portion of their mail list were vegetarians who opted out of future catalogs because of that cover. And granted, nobody tracks vegetarians in their data, but if they had, they could have done a different catalog cover for those folks. If you run into situations where there are differing opinions on the cover photos, you might want to consider budgeting for some split testing. Just make sure that you track the results carefully, test carefully, only changing maybe one thing at a time, and that should provide some excellent direction for future covers and end any internal arguments that you may have. Snipes. I know we all love snipes. Snipes are really often those things that designers love to hate and managers sometimes don't fully understand. In my opinion, they can work really well if they're designed and written well. But unfortunately, they're also one of the most misunderstood and abused graphics used on catalog covers. This is a great example of a lot of snipe abuse. Too close together, too small, illegible, too many styles, too many weird little things going on around them. It all impacts comprehension and slows down the user's desire to purchase. To create effective snipes, we have to go back to the basics: purpose, content, shape, contrast, and don't forget functional space. I've seen catalogs that use snipes for every single product on the cover, and it still manages to work well, while others might opt to only use a single snipe to offer a single powerful message. These three covers show some very good uses of snipes, some singly, some repetitive. Both the Burpee and the Gardener Supply front covers limit themselves to a single snipe, and they ensure its effectiveness by creating an awesome deal you can't miss out on, keeping the snipe simple. Good contrast between the text and the snipe color is high, and they've positioned them away from other elements so that they can get more attention. The functional space surrounding the snipes allows me as the consumer to mentally separate it from all the other cover info and more quickly comprehend the two deals and decide what I want to do. The Jung cover, on the other hand, uses a repetition of snipes to ensure that customers know that all these feature products on the cover are brand new this year. And the new snipe is readable. The colors tie into the cover design while still contrasting with the background. And because they're repeated, it eliminates the need for the user to relearn each snipe as they read it. They can just start glancing around and see, yes, all of these are new. Personalization is another way to snag attention, and in my opinion, not enough catalogs take advantage of personalization technologies. Of course, you have to have a decent amount of data in your list to do any personalization beyond name imprints. For instance, Uline has not only one of the most colorful and effective catalogs, but they also manage their data really well. Here's an example of Uline's win-back efforts on a recent catalog. The nice thing about it is that they didn't rely on imprinting on the front cover. They used dot whacking to create a more colorful, professional, and effective message. Now, reseller catalogs can also be easily customized. You can use imprints and black plate changes. And if they're carefully designed, the covers don't have to look like reseller catalogs. This is an example of Boder's Advantage, and it shows how careful selection of the cover photos combined with a single plate change, black, can still make the cover look authentic rather than simply imprinted. I really like how the photo leaves the sky area at the top for the reseller logos rather than placing them in like a white or a black colored background. It makes it look really integrated and it comes off much more professional. And even if you don't have really great data on your list, you can still personalize your customers' experiences by integrating some of the current marketing technologies such as QR codes, social media links, and personalized landing pages into your catalog covers. When folks think of QR codes, they often think of them just for linking to a website or contact info. And that's a great start. But really, QR codes are only limited by your imagination. Consider using them to create like a treasure hunt throughout the catalog, offering recipes to download that go with the kitchenwares that you're selling in the catalog, downloading growing information on new tomato hybrids on the cover. Work them throughout the catalog, not just on the cover. Edward Don & Company's catalog shows an awesome use of QR codes. They tell you right on the back cover that there are codes scattered throughout the catalog, and that to get more specific info on the products and to even see videos for the products, all the reader has to do is scan the codes associated with the various products. This is a great way to go beyond just sending someone to your website from the cover of your catalog. And don't forget to connect, that you can offer to connect with customers outside of the catalog on Twitter, Facebook, your blog. Vosges does a really good job of maintaining an online dialogue with their customers, and they even use Facebook to work through customer service issues. And that keeps it very transparent and positive. Everybody can see what the problems are. Everybody can see them solve it quickly. So go ahead, if you do have an online social media presence, mention it on the cover. Just be prepared. And don't feel limited to just asking folks to follow you on Twitter or whatever. Try alerting them to special deals for Twitter users, like follow us on Twitter to get 20% off your first purchase, or friend us on Facebook to get a free gift, and so forth. I follow most of the gardening companies I buy from, and they're often offering prize drawings and coupons to loyal followers. This is how you get fans instead of just customers. Annie Hayes is a good example of this. She owns a small independent gardening center in California, and she's very quickly gathered a huge fan base by integrating her very cool catalogs with online social media. She's a small-time operator compared to a big company like Burpee, but she has a much more influential presence among avid gardeners, which are her target. We all pretty much can't wait to get her printed catalogs because they're so cool. And her covers always generate buzz on Twitter and huge discussions and debates on Facebook. In fact, Annie's annuals is a good segue into the next topic, when to use illustration versus photography. You know, it's funny that we seem to go through cycles where illustration is more popular than photography, like in the 50s. I don't know, anybody else remember the 50s? Anyway, for the most part, designers tend to rely on photography. The exceptions occur when you have a product or service area where more creativity or more artistic license is wanted by the customers, like Annie's covers, for instance. Their designer integrates photography and illustration together to create a brand image that's very unique in the gardening market. Of all the gardening catalogs I track, this is the only instance where I've seen such an interesting array of images, and it works every single time. Even though each cover is unique, they are consistent in style and coloring. You'd think that gardeners would want to know exactly what flowers or vegetables look like before they buy them, and you'd be right. Most of the gardening catalogs that use illustrations on their covers also use proper product photography on the interior pages. This gives them the tools to create a brand image on the cover that's unique to them while still serving customer needs prior to purchase. And gardeners I've spoken with really look forward to these types of catalogs. They actually call them garden porn. And they all place their orders online, but they use these catalogs to make decisions. Another great example of illustration being more appropriate than photography are these great little book catalogs from niche bookseller Daedalus Books. Daedalus is luckily in the position of not having to show product glamour or detail shots. All they need are the book covers on the interior pages, and that leaves them totally open to get conceptual on the cover. And this works really well for their specific target audience of avid book readers who still want books on paper. Each cover illustrates a concept about books or reading, such as books growing on trees. Whether you're working with illustration or photography or both, make sure you maintain some level of brand consistency. And not only from catalog to catalog cover, but especially think about consistency between the catalog covers and the other consumer touch points like the advertising, direct mail, websites, your brand's social media presence, and store signage, store design, even your employees. Imagine if you read the quirky Annie's Annuals catalog and then you called them to ask a question only to be connected to a switchboard in another country. You'd feel really let down, for sure. And that would be one example of a brand failing. And remember, design isn't just about typography, color, and layout. To be the most effective, all aspects of the business need to adhere to the brand image. Without that level of cohesion between the catalog covers and everything else, building and maintaining trust is more of a struggle. Managing expectations between the catalog and a storefront or customer service line is impossible. And the best snipe in the world won't help you. And I am going to open it up for dialogue. Carol, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Julia,
both here.
for sharing that great information on catalog cover design. If you wish to contact Julia directly, her information is shown here. Go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Wake up, Julia.
I was looking at the questions.
Okay. Before we go into the Q&A portion, I would again like to ask you to remember to complete the post-event survey that will appear at the close of today's event. And now we have some time for some questions, and it looks like we have quite a few. So Julia, your first question, what do you think is the price differential for a typical studio photo for a catalog cover versus commissioning an illustration? Or doesn't using illustration add a lot of cost to the cover?
Well, and a lot of people think that. That's kind of it's a bummer that that's the perception that illustrations have. But in all honesty, from my experience, it really depends on the illustrator and the photographer that you're comparing. I know photographers, and I've worked with them, who have incredibly high day rates, and yet there are illustrators who are much more affordable and flexible. Also, it's also just about, like just about any other industry, you're going to pay more when they're in high demand than when they're hurting for work. Another way to manage costs might be to find illustrators or photographers who are just starting out or who are looking to expand into new directions. And they'll often work with you on price. Do keep in mind, though, that both illustration and photography are subject to federal copyright laws, so you're going to end up negotiating usage rights whether you use a photographer or an illustrator, unless they're on staff or the images are created as work for hire, which will obviously be cheaper. One more thought I had, hang on. When you take an approach like Annie's, and I don't know if I can go back to that, when you take an approach like Annie's covers here, that have a mix of illustration and photography, you can often get away with using stock illustrations in custom photography, and that'll help you manage costs and create a unique brand. And this actually will take a little more time for the designer to integrate well, but it can be very effective to differentiate yourself between you and other people.
Okay, you ready for another question?
Sure.
Okay. What is the best option to show a variety of products that cover 3 different customer bases?
Ooh, that is a good question. And I'm going to assume that you only have one cover. You can't split the cover. You can't print the same catalog and do 3 different covers, which might be an option, printing the same catalog and working with your printer to come up with 3 different covers. The other option, of course, would be to divide the cover into 3 sections and use a separate photograph or a separate object for each of the items. But I'd really, as a first line of defense on that, I'd really talk to your printer, see what it actually costs to print different covers on the same catalog. It might not be as much as you're thinking. It depends on your quantity and your mail list, and if you can actually split your mail list that way.
Okay. What do you think are the best criteria to use for choosing products that you feature on the cover?
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I'm not a marketer, but from my experience, you should give special attention to things like product launches, the best-selling products that you guys have. And there might be other marketing priorities, such as seasonal schedules or holidays, and you might have to do something completely different for those. Like Vogue Vosges will get away with printing specific product shots without their packaging on regular covers, but they found out through testing that they had to include the packaging on the Valentine's Day cover. So that's an example of where, testing actually pointed them in the right direction, but both could be a solution, both the product and the packaging. What you should do, though, is definitely shoot for encouraging your customers by using products that are profitable for your company and even allowing for multiple purchases.
Okay. Another question. Our company is B2B cataloger that sells more than 20,000 unique products. Wow. How can you visually show this without focusing on any one particular product?
I would definitely refer you to the Uline catalog for an example of that. Uline, I love their catalog. They make me feel like such an office geek. Where is it? There it is. I don't know how many products they have, but this catalog, when it lands on your desk, it's a good half-inch thick, and it's completely filled to the gills. Now, this is an example of showing an array of best-selling products on the cover and not having to worry about showing each and everything. You're never going to be able to show all your products on the cover. So what you have to do is start prioritizing, and you prioritize by bestsellers, what works in a specific month. You may find that, like Uline, for instance, may find that they need to put more shipping supplies, boxes and things like that on the cover during certain months of the year, like in the fall when people are shipping for Christmas. And in other months of the year, they might put something else on the cover. But I think that, theirs is a good example because they've got this grid system set up that allows them to show more than a couple of products on the cover, and it gives you the impression that they've got a whole lot more. Plus, they've got this tagline at the bottom, and it's just a great catalog. I think it's possible, and I don't think you should necessarily think that you have to show a single key product on the cover. You don't always have to do that. It depends on your specific situation.
Okay. Next question. How do you create a QR code? And I'm not sure, Julia, if that's a question that
how do you
can handle, or
can you say that again? How do you obtain what?
How do you obtain or create a QR code?
Create a QR code. Well, there are some online websites where you can go to create them. And what I can do after the webinar, let's see, I'll post it on our Twitter account, a link to the one that I use to create QR codes. But Carol and I were talking about this earlier. Ripon uses a service that is able to create very small QR codes. What I've found with QR codes is that the more complex the information associated with the code, you often get stuck with a really detailed code that has to be huge in order for your phone to understand it. And Carol was telling me that what they do with QR codes, they're able to get them down to a much smaller size and a much simpler code and still contain complex information. So, you can work through your printer to get a QR code, and you can also get them online for free. If you're going to include them on a cover and you want to resize them, scale them up and down, and you find a website that's going to give you a QR code, make sure they give it to you as an EPS file so that it's scalable. If they give it to you as a PNG or a JPEG, you can't scale it up.
Yeah, I agree with that. We do use, and in fact, some of our direct mail pieces we've been using QR codes, and yeah, it's easier to size if it's a higher res, so we can take care of that.
If you hit me up on Twitter later at Mondovox on Twitter, and I'll pass you the link to the QR code online producer that I use, and it doesn't cost a thing yet. So.
Okay, another question. You ready?
Uh-huh.
What is the difference between a snipe and a dot whack?
Carol, I might pass this to you. Snipes are...
I wasn't even really familiar with the term snipe until your presentation, But from
and
my
a snipe, a snipe is a visual interceptor. And
but
it's
that's
meant
pretty much printed on the piece, correct?
Well,
printed.
Traditionally it has been printed on the piece. And the dot wax is a method of printing. It can have the same effect as a snipe. It can look like it's printed. But, Carol, I'm going to let you explain how you guys do your dot wax.
The dot wax is, they're like little labels or stickers that we have a dot waxing machine that actually puts it on the catalog wherever it's required. So we purchase the labels, and those things, we can take care of, we can estimate or do whatever depending on what you want. And then we have a machine that just basically puts it on there, sticks it on there, and you're good to go. So it is something that is a peelable type of sticker, whereas the snipes to me are printed. So.
And the snipe can also be more integrated into the design. Look, I think you guys can still see the slide that I've got up there with the Seed Savers Exchange catalog compared to the Uline catalog. The Uline uses the dot wax, and it's a very opaque option. I mean, you can't see through it. You print it in color, and you put it where you want it on the catalog cover. It's not always going to be straight or perfect because it's a dot wax. The Seed Saver catalog, on the other hand, if you look closely at that at the very bottom edge, their snipe intercepts at the very bottom, and it's transparent over the photo. It's a very classy, kind of a high-end looking snipe, and basically it's become a member of their exchange, and you get 10% off anything you order. And that kind of treatment with the transparency and the integration with the photography is not possible with a dot wax. But the dot wax stands out more.
And then with the dot wax also, if you have a lot of catalogs that maybe are printed, you could use the dot wax with different information at different times, or without it.
To personalize your catalogs or to segment them in some way.
Or if you're offering something special for a period of time, that can be applied. Anyway, let's get off of that and get on to some other questions. Let's see. My company creates catalogs for outdoor and cycling companies. Do you think an image of a person on the cover must show their face, or can you sell the outdoor experience and intrigue the consumer with the person small? Who is the person small and or walking away from the camera?
Oh, that's a really good question. My gut reaction would be that you have to show, you got to show the product. You got to show the person looking vibrant. To have the person, maybe walking in the distance as a dot on a mountain range, I don't know that that's going to be as effective. But I'd like to couch that statement with, it would be good to test that kind of a situation. If you've got a target demographic that's fairly sophisticated, and they travel a lot to mountain ranges, then you might find that a mountain range shot and someone in the distance works better than something up close. But if your target market are, say, off-road bicyclists, then the mud and the disturbing of the woods, the dirt and everything up close might be what works better. That's a perfect example of maybe doing the same cover but with a different photo, and do a split test and see what works. And then you'll know for all your future covers, and you won't have to worry about it again.
Okay. This might kind of go along the same line. My company sells wholesale medical supplies. We carry both popular and hard-to-find items. How can we effectively appeal to people who would buy both on our cover?
That's really interesting. I'm going to assume that they'd be different audiences that would buy both, and there might be some crossover, some people who might be surprised to find that you have something unusual that's hard to find. I think it'd be good to figure out a way to do both on the cover. And maybe, the first thing I might look at would be some sort of an inset photo or an inset promo, not a snipe, but bigger inset on top of a background image that plays to the unique product, and then have a larger image that plays to the everyman's product, and try to do both. The other thing you can do is put one on the front and one on the back, because your catalog is going to land face up or face down. The Seed Saver Exchange catalog, for instance, one of their products is a membership. It's not actually seeds. They strive to increase their membership in the exchange, and I should have photographed it and put it in here for you, but they handle that on the back cover, and because the people who become a member of the exchange are pretty much an exclusive bunch versus the people who just buy seeds from the catalog, and the benefits to the people who want to become a member are greater. So that's one way that they deal with it, is they split it between the front and back covers, and that seems to work pretty well for them.
Interesting. Let's see. I have somebody that sent in a note that said mobibricks.com has reusable QR codes that you can track and change the URL when you want, and it's free. That's mobibrix.com. So thank you for giving us that information.
Cool. I am writing that down.
And somebody's asking, Julia, if it's okay if they send you questions after the webinar specifically to you about their catalog design. You don't mind that, do you?
No. Absolutely. Go right ahead. Let me go
to that page
so. Here. Here's my contact info, and here's Carol's contact info. If you have any printing-specific questions, you can snap those two little QR codes with your phone and get us in there pretty quickly.
Okay. Let's go to another question. We tend to buy our paper almost exclusively on price, and we're often inconsistent about issues like brightness, shade, and sometimes even grade. Should we be more concerned about our selections, keeping in mind how important costs are today?
Well,
Does anyone really notice?
Yeah, that's really going to depend on your target audience. If you're creating a catalog like Vosges catalog, it's a luxury product, you really have to maintain some level of high-end standards in a catalog like that, because that assures the consumer that the product is as they claim, and that the product is as exclusive and unusual and high-end as they say it is. If you're in a different situation now, a lower-end catalog like the Heartland America or Tiger Direct or the Daedalus books, then I think the best thing to do would be to sit down with your printer, whoever that is, and try to create some sort of a long-term paper strategy. That'll help you be a little more consistent and watch costs more. That way you're not just following the ebb and flow of the paper tide month to month. You can also use that kind of a discussion as an opening discussion if you're considering changing printers. And, that would help you make a choice, I would hope.
Well, of course, nobody wants to leave Ripon printers, though. Okay.
Oh, absolutely not.
Question would be, would you be willing to critique and offer suggestions on a layout? Julia, that's specifically for you. Absolutely. Julia loves helping out with that.
As long as it's on weekends, no, it's fine. Just go ahead and email me or call me. The next slide here is going to have some, a Twitter link and LinkedIn info, and those are two other ways that you can connect with us.
Okay, another quick question here. I'm guessing that you didn't design the Heartland catalog cover, but did you design any of the others in this presentation?
Yeah, I purposely did not include any of our work in the proposal or in the presentation because I wanted it to be as unbiased as possible. In my opinion, a discussion like this should really be about the best approaches and not specifically our portfolio. I'm not here to sell my services. I'm here to help you guys, and let's start a dialogue and a give and take of information about what works, and then collectively we can all become better. And if you do want to see examples of our work, of course, you can see that on our website. no issues there.
And as I had said in my introduction, a lot of Ripon printers collateral, marketing collateral has been designed by Julia too. So let's see. What is your opinion of using cutout product images versus images of the product in use?
I think it's going to depend on the product. There's a really good example in here that I just love. If I can find it quickly. Oh, and you can't really see it here. You can see it better here. The Dawn Company, they sell kitchenwares for restaurants, the high-end, very expensive stuff. But Uline, of course, right next to it, they have so many products for shipping and warehousing and all of that. This is a really good comparison, these two, if you can squint past all of the other catalogs on this page. The nice thing about the Dawn products and the Dawn cover is it does show one of their products in action. It shows a very active kitchen, and it lends you to believe that their products can undergo a lot of stress, especially the stress of a very high-end restaurant or a very busy restaurant. Uline, it's really all about stuff and organizing your stuff. It's not so much that they don't need to show that they can lift a 10-ton truck on that on this dolly here. And it's more about their selection, their broad selection of items, rather than what the items specifically contribute to your business. So I think the answer to that will depend, and I unfortunately don't know what your business is or what you're selling, but it depends on the products and it depends on the target market. And that would, not to keep going back to split testing, but I really can't emphasize enough. It really can point you in the right direction. All you got to do is do it once, and then you'll know. Also you have to know, one last thought on that, you have to know your target market. If your target market, like the chefs are going to be really picky about their chef wares, more so than maybe a warehouse guy would be picky about the dolly. So that might also clue you into a specific direction.
Okay. Just want to remind everybody, if you do have questions, to please send them our way. We have a few more minutes yet. So, Julia, I have another one. When you were talking about the busy versus the less cluttered back cover, how do you know the busy one didn't perform better? We've tried both approaches, and our results show that the more products we show, the better.
Well, and, the more products you show, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to look busy. That's where we get back into functional space. And if you organize it well enough, you can still make the cover highly functional and extremely easy to figure out. And also keep in mind, my background comes from my training and experience in the visual arts, and that's where that's why I think that you need to really invite readership rather than forcing people to read against their will. I would suggest that if you've got a busy cover, look at not so much quelling out some of the products and thinning it out that way, but trying to figure out a way to inject more function into that cover. And maybe it's not about reducing the number of products, adding a little padding around each product, making sure the font is legible, adding some contrast in. Those kind of things can make busy look less cluttered, and you've still got the same number of products, and you still have a highly functioning cover.
Okay. Well, I think it looks like, let's see, just trying to scroll through and see if we have missed any questions. Again, if anybody has any, just type them in.
And also, if you think of anything afterwards, feel free to contact us. Carol's available at the Ripon info here. I'm available at my info at the top. We can also continue the dialogue on LinkedIn, or at our Twitter account. So if you have any, if we end up, I don't want this dialogue to stop right here. This is not the purpose of the webinar. I would really like to hear more from people and start talking about this in greater depth.
We have a couple more questions here, Julia. Some of the covers shown do not necessarily point a customer inside the catalog using products and page numbers. Isn't it true that a good catalog design should always draw in a customer as opposed to just be visually appealing? Good question.
It is a good question. Like this one here, Daedalus Books has some specific pages referenced on the cover. And I think that, largely you could make a generalization like that and say, yes, a cover should always draw someone to a specific location inside. But I think that, largely you also have to figure out what works best for your target market. It may not be the right thing to do in all instances. However, look here at the J. Peterman catalog on the far left of this screen. That particular sundress there is on a page on the inside, and it's referenced right there on the cover to go inside and take a look at it. The same thing with the Uline catalog. Those objects are all on specific pages inside. But you're right, not all of them do that, and I think they all function differently. Annie's Annuals, for instance, uses the back cover to promote specific products. And I think that that's fine. It just depends. It can be fine, rather. Let me say it that way. It's going to depend on your target market, your product type, your product area, and the level of information that you want to give on your cover versus inside.
Okay. A question, do you recommend spot UV to emphasize products?
Only if environmentability or the environmental aspects are not so much of an issue. Spot UV can leave the impression that you're not environmentally concerned, and if that's not an issue for your industry, it can work really well to draw attention to things. But if you're like in the gardening industry or something, and that's going to be a concern, you don't necessarily want to do anything that looks bad for the garden or bad for the environment. Uline has a very glossy cover on this particular catalog, and it works well. It makes the colors pop a whole lot on their individual products, and that's one of the benefits of having spot UVs or an entire flood varnish. So, I mean, the correct answer to that is it's going to depend on the environmental concerns of your audience, and you have to couch that with the needs and the goal of the company to promote the product using shiny.
Okay. I love the questions that are coming in. What do you recommend for background? White, other solid color, or texture?
Oh, I wish I knew more about the product. It depends. Like look at these four on the cover here. They're all great. The J. Peterman catalog, well, it is what it is, and it's always been like that, a very simple white cover with illustrated products on the cover. And the Uline is a white cover with brightly colored products, but you go to Seed Savers Exchange, and it's solid color, and it's rich, and it's vibrant, and you just want to make sure you can grow all those tomatoes. The State Fair, it just looks very active and vibrant. What you need to do is think about the goals of the cover, what you're selling, and then that will help you decide what color to use or whether to use a white background and how much contrast you're going to need. Also keep in mind that when you start using colored backgrounds in photography, it can get a little more busy. So you want to think about the style of photography and the style of typography that you use, and the more elements that you add.
Okay.
I don't think you can make
one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Should every...
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I don't think you can make a blanket statement that white covers bad, color covers good. Unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. It all depends.
Okay. Let's see, another question. Shouldn't each cover page and every body page display how the customer can contact you, such as email, phone number, URL? How do you feel about that?
A designer asked that question. I think that you do need some contact info on every page in very fat catalogs. If your catalog is 4 pages or 8 pages, and, you know, not a very big kind of thing, you could probably get away without doing that. But I really do think that catalogs need to have contact information throughout them. Not all of the catalogs that I've reviewed today actually adhere to that, but it's helpful if people don't have to go searching for information like that. That said, I don't think you need to put the Twitter and the Facebook logo on every single page. That would be overkill. But at least the phone number, at least the website or the online catalog. Once per spread, maybe. You know, if you really are crammed for space and you can't include it on every single page, once per spread, I think should be sufficient.
Okay, and I said that was going to be the last question, but I do want to ask one more question because I think it's really important to know and get your feeling on. Do you design the cover first or last? Well,
usually when you're working a catalog, you have a catalog every month or every quarter or once a year. Your interior is oftentimes going to be consistent from catalog to catalog. You're using the same grid, the same photos. You might be rearranging things. You're adding a new product into the section up front or whatever. And your cover is designed separately, sometimes maybe even by a different designer. If you're in a situation like that, I think it can be really fun for a designer to start with the cover. It can get the designer excited about the catalog again, because you know, once you do these catalogs month after month after month, it can be pretty much a chore. And the cover is the fun part. If you are doing one every year and you're totally changing it up, cover and interior, I think you start where it's going to make you most productive. From my experience, me personally, I like to start with the interior because I have an overly abundant left brain that likes to organize things and put things in boxes and make things line up, and that's just the way I function best, and I'm very efficient at that. And that gives me a flavor for what the focus of that catalog is going to be that time, and then I go back to the cover and start working on something really impressive for the cover. But
okay.
Not everybody will be like me. So, I mean, you have to do what makes you most efficient and most functional.
Okay, I think we'll wrap it up here. I want to thank you, Julia Moran-Martz, for this informative presentation. I think we all learned a lot about catalog cover design that we can use to take our catalog performance to even higher levels. As I noted earlier, a recording of today's event will be available through a link on our website homepage under events later this week. I want to personally thank you for attending today's seminar. I know it's not easy to break away from your normal workload, but I hope we provided information that will help you design catalog covers that sell and reinforce your brand. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope you'll join us again for future events. Thank you, Julia, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye.
And don't forget to connect with us outside of here if you have additional questions.
Definitely. There are more questions, so I'll be forwarding those. So
okay,
thank you, everyone.
And we'll answer those offline if we can. So you'll have some way to contact those folks who had questions we didn't get to.
Yes, yes. Any questions not answered will be handled offline. So.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
So rest assured, folks, we'll get to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.